Hello, hello. Welcome to Media Queen TV. We have the amazing Dr. Robin Tim So with us, a phenomenal acupuncturist from the Gold Coast. And we're going to chat today about, can the body self-heal? But before we chat about Robin and some of the amazing things that he's experienced in his time as an acupuncturist, we do need to put up a disclaimer for you because we are talking about this very sensitive topic. And this is our disclaimer here, is that the information shared in this video represents the personal experiences, perspectives, and insights of Dr. Robin Tim So and myself, Aldwyn Altuney. It's intended for educational purposes only and informational purposes only. Okay, the video does not constitute medical or therapeutic advice and should not replace consultations with qualified healthcare professionals. Now, you are encouraged as viewers or listeners to seek professional guidance for any health-related concerns and to make decisions based on your own individual needs. Okay, this discussion reflects Dr. Robin Tim So's personal journey and professional insights. And your results and experiences may vary, okay? So this is not to be taken as gospel. We are sharing our opinions here. It is not considered professional it's not intended for you to be used for yourself, okay? So now we've got that out of the way. Let's have a chat now in just a moment with Dr. Robin Tim So. But firstly, he has 44 years of experience as an acupuncturist on the Gold Coast. Since 1990, he's actually been on the Gold Coast, and he was diagnosed with stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer in July 2020, which I'd say for a lot of people would be very hard to handle getting that kind of diagnosis. So, Robin, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Alwyn. It's such a pleasure to be here and be sharing this unique time in our lives together. It's quite amazing.
Thank you so much for coming on. Now, how did you get into acupuncture in the first place?
I never decided to be an acupuncturist, I have to say. My grandmother probably influenced me when I was very young, and she always used to make up soups and give us these little pills. And I never spoke a word to my grandmother because she only spoke Chinese, and I'm third generation Australian. And so I always had this sense that I understood what she was saying, and I'd ask my auntie sometimes, but I felt what she said. It's almost like a deaf person being able to perceive what other people are saying just by the vibe. And so that was early experiences that I knew that I could get a good sense of, other people actually tuning into them and their vibe sort of thing. And everybody has that sense of knowingness, with loved ones. Mothers are really good with children, when the kids are not happy or disturbed, they'll go into their bedroom and they're upset, sort of thing. So it's just called a sixth sense, really. I mean, there was a time when the sixth sense was a taboo subject, but most people understand sixth sense these days. And I think I had a really unique opportunity to harness that very, very early in life. And so being guided by this God force, spirit, greater energy set me in the pathway to actually become an acupuncturist. And I never, as I said, I never chose, I want to be an acupuncturist. I had uncles that were doctors of medicine. I had one uncle that was actually at the time the president of the Australian Acupuncture Association. And so his experience with me made me feel comfortable. But so my uncles who were doctors of medicine, they were great. I didn't have any trouble with hanging out with them as my uncles. They were really friendly and everything. So it wasn't as though I felt insecure around whether it be medical doctors or my uncle, the other uncle who was an acupuncturist. They were my uncles, And then suddenly a situation happened where my mother, and I'm talking about the newspaper back then, she saw this little square article in the newspaper that said acupuncture course starting where I was living. And so I was like, she asked me, "Do you want to go and look at acupuncture?" And I said, as a little kid, I mean, sorry, I was about 16, and to me, I was pretty shy. And I said, "Yeah, sure, let's give that a try." And so then I enrolled in the course and became involved. And whenever I do anything, whether it be from a student point of view, I was one of those typical Chinese kids that actually made sure you did well when you studied something. If you're going to study something, do it well. I was a Boy Scout when I was a lot younger, so if you're going to do something, do it well. Is a part of my personality. And so, yeah, it all fell into place. And then when I was ready to graduate, the college where I was, the gentleman that ran that had a clinic there. And he asked me, he said, "Do you want to take over my practice? I'm leaving the town. I'm leaving town and I don't want to, I want to sell the practice." And so I just asked my father, and seriously, this is how simple it was. And my father said, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Give it a try." And so, within a period of time, I was running this busy practice, learning, jumping in at the deep end and learning to swim really quickly. And in actual fact, that's how I learned to swim. I jumped in the deep end and I learned to swim. Again, my personality. And that's what makes me a really good researcher at the end of the day. I love that part of myself that actually dives in and gets involved. Involvement is probably the key word for me. Whenever I choose or get the sense that I really want to do something, I involve myself. I don't believe in this half-hearted approach to life. I've never been an indecisive person, but it does take me time to get into a sense of, yeah, it feels good, do it. Um, Again, that's just my personality. And it's led me my whole life. I have to say, it's led me my whole life to be like that. If it doesn't feel good, I don't do it. I mean, I'm that strict on myself. It's just like, no, not doing it. Um,
Mm.
I can be stubborn sometimes because it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I love that. And sixth sense is actually one of the 13 principles mentioned in Think and Grow Rich,
Oh,
which is
okay.
interesting, right? It's having that sixth sense and actually tuning in to how do you really feel about something? Because often we can get so much in our heads that we can sometimes get detached from our emotions and from really feeling things and listening and tuning in to our feelings. And often at the base of a dis-ease in the body can be some kind of emotional stuff at the base of it. And this is where Louise
Yeah.
Hay, Heal Your Life, with a lot of the things that she talked about. Very, very interesting to look into that and look at all the different ailments and things that can happen in the body and how there could be some emotional links there. And now
Yeah.
I want to welcome also everyone who's joining us right now on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Welcome, welcome. We've got Alison Horn on LinkedIn. Good to see you, Alison. She says, "Love this. Yes, 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 we can heal." She says, "Yes, yes, yes, we can heal." Now, that's her opinion. And thank you very much for that, Alison. And when we use the word heal here, there's all sorts of regulation around the word heal, right? So take this as you will with the word heal as we talk about this today. Maybe you could reverse some symptoms, etc. I mean, it's very interesting to look at that. I want to welcome also on Instagram, we've got Nap Kindery's joined us, Will the Wizard, Muhammad Hotak says hi. How you
Wow.
going there, Don Martin, Tony McFarlane? Good to see you guys. So now when we
Wow.
say heal, right? Can the body self-heal? What does that mean to you, Robin?
um, every dynamics of what science is just defined as what the body does, the cellular level, um, you know, the development level, because we start off as a sperm and an egg, not as united, and then it goes from there. And the interesting thing about development and healing, in my way of looking at, nobody actually conjures that up as a willpower. It just happens automatically when a sperm and an egg get together and conceive. And given the right environment, then that little being, let's say, then grows into you and me. I mean, when my daughter was born, I held her in my arms and I just was like absolutely amazed at there was a point in time in everybody's life where we were actually that little beings ourselves. And my grandmother used to hold me in her arms like that. And, I mean, everybody who's a parent would really probably understand totally what I'm talking about and or experience, children and birth. And so that to me is where all healing begins and continues in a life. You cut yourself and you don't have to think heal up, it heals up by itself automatically. Everything has varying degrees of healing and everything has varying degrees of reversal and recovery. It really depends on the individual how well their body functions, because some people don't heal even from a small cut very easily. They have trouble with bleeding. So um, I like to look at health and healing as a very unique process because everybody is absolutely unique. Skin types, biological types, genetic types, everything has to be interplaying at any given time for a body to be healthy or not so healthy, diseased, and then heal, die. Often I use that word because heal, die is not unlike heal thyself. So, something that when I was very, very young, I mean, I'm talking, school kids in the neighborhood hanging out, all having fun and sometimes having arguments and picking on each other. I don't know. Back in my days, we had neighborhoods where all the kids would get together and play. And there was this little girl there that I often think about, even now today, and she had googly eyes. And emotionally, I used to get picked on at school because of my slanted eyes. There were bullies back then, even, even back then. And so I found myself as a little kid picking on her because she had googly eyes. Now, time went past, and unfortunately, I saw an ambulance at the side of at her house one day, and I said to my mother, "What happened to that little girl?" And she said, "Oh, she died." And it was like, my gosh. And I'm talking, 10 or 11 years of age. And that was such a shock to me to have experience of death so early, and particularly kids that are playing together. And I never really had a chance to actually resolve that in myself. I carried that guilt to some degree for many, many years until at some stage within about 6 months, I said to my mother, I think I need to go to the doctor because I could be sick. And the doctor at that time was a very busy man. He is actually the one that birthed me. He actually didn't really answer my query as an 11-year-old and sort of just brushed me aside. And I remember standing at the stairs where my mother was paying, and I said, I'm going to find out for myself. Again, my personality kicked in, and I said, I'm going to find out for myself. And so I think that set the pathway for my whole life to actually understand why people get sick and understand healing as such. Even to the degree where I enrolled in medicine in university, but that year the quota I missed out on the quota for that year by 10, apparently. My score was fine, but there were 10 extra kids that couldn't get in. And so I enrolled in science then with the intention of going into medicine after. Time went past and it didn't work out. It honestly didn't work out. And so I went back to my community and just bummed around for a year or two. as a typical teenager, there's like, well, that's not necessarily what I'm going to do right now. And worked in a health food shop, and that set the pathway for me to actually maybe look at health and healing from a more natural point of view. Because the gentleman that was the owner of the shop, he was really quite strict on his diet. He was strict on a lot of things, and I was surprised because I'd never seen that before. My father owned a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, so I grew up on the normal Australian Chinese meals, and white rice was a consistent staple part of our diet. So to see something so different through that gentleman sort of started opening my mind up, and then obviously I got led into studying acupuncture, and from there everything's evolved quickly. I mean, when I was 33, and I graduated at 21 with a membership number of 49, and so at 21 to 33, I was practicing with this childlike sense that I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, but I'm doing this right now. And I think it really is an age thing or a maturity thing that suddenly it just kicked in. And I actually realized one day when I was driving into clinic that, oh my gosh, this is my life purpose. This is really what's given me so much satisfaction. And I don't have trouble studying it. I love it, it was a passion of mine. And so therein lied, I actually made the commitment to be an acupuncturist. Long story short, I made the commitment to be an acupuncturist at the age of 31, even though I've been practicing since I was 21.
Right. Interesting.
Mm.
We've got a fellow acupuncturist here, Dr. Scott Fox in Brisbane.
Hey, Scott. Yeah, I know, Scott. How are you? Nice to
Yeah,
see you there. God.
good to see you, Scott. We've interviewed Scott on some of our shows before. He's awesome. Great to see you, Scott. And we can see Robert Moles joined us on Instagram. Good to see you guys. Good to see you. Now, there is a great quote that I love, and it's a Hippocrates quote that says, "Let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food." What are your thoughts about that quote?
Immediately, conjures up this idea that, yeah, if we do the right thing by ourselves and eat properly, then it's very possible that we can stay healthy. In the one I like is physician heal thyself at the end of the day. So,
Yes.
I mean, I don't know about other practitioners, but I'm a practitioner that does listen to my own advice, I have to say.
Yes.
I
Now,
do I do listen to myself.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome because we are our own best friends, right? We're here with ourselves from the beginning and we're here with ourselves from the end. So we know what is best for our body. And when we talk about
Correct.
healing here, now one of my clients in my mass media mastery program, she's one of our members, Lorna Buckland, phenomenal lady in Brisbane, and she was given by doctors. She had cancer. She was given 3 months to live, and that was about 41 years ago now. And now this can be a real trap when doctors say, "Oh, you've got so long to live," and some people believe it. And, inevitably, in believing that, they could end up actually dying at that time because that's what they believe to be true. How important is it with the healing journey to, as we say, listen to our own body and not necessarily take the advice of so-called professionals? Because I guess the professional advice is not always possibly right for you. And I'm sure most professionals do the best they can with what they know. But what are your thoughts on, the doctors and the
Well,
professionals they're saying you have
I
so
mean,
long to live?
medicine's fantastic, but medicine is very statistically related. So it's all based on statistics. X amount of percentage of people recover from this or X amount of don't. And so that's really what they've got something to gauge it on. They don't really gauge it on clairvoyantly saying, well, you've got 3 months to live. It's based on statistics only. And so when a doctor quotes that, I would say that he actually quotes statistics, really. But statistics are only statistics based on the past. There's nothing to do with necessarily the future, When I had my, we haven't talked about that yet. When I had my diagnosis, I didn't even get into the conversation, and it was stimulated, but I didn't. No, I'm not going into that conversation. No, I would actually say I don't need to talk about that. I'm not. I jokingly, and again, my personality. I said, if I want a clairvoyant, I'll go and find a clairvoyant, but you're not my clairvoyant, so I'm not asking you to predict my future. You know, so
Yes.
that's that was my first step in self-empowerment. But having been an acupuncturist at that time for close to 40 years, I knew a lot about the human body and what it does from a acupuncture point of view, and also from a science point of view in the degree that I could study it. Um, and so I did understand the diagnosis that I was given at the time, but I didn't actually see it from a point of view of how they predicted it. Tell you the truth, yeah, yeah. We could
Yeah.
probably open that conversation up very shortly in relationship to my own personal journey and being challenged with that ultimate question: Can you heal your own body? I mean, you know, for 40 years I worked on patients all the time, and the funny thing about being a practitioner is a patient will come for a period of time and then you don't see them again. Or the ones that really like you, you would see repeatedly over a period of time. I have lifetime patients. There are patients that actually, show up that I haven't seen for 5, 6 years, and they suddenly show up again. So I like that because I must have made an impression. But then you'll have other patients that will show up for a period of time, have a back problem. You treat that. They have, they're going through something emotionally, stress wise. You treat that, but may never ever see them again. And so, did they get better? I would hope so, based on the work I did. But you don't really know. They're not complaining to me that they didn't get better, so I guess they have got better, and they
Mm.
fixed up their account, so everything's clean and clear. So we move forward. So I saw that my whole life for 40 years, and I assumed that we were doing a good job as in practice, because it's only an assumption at the end of the day. I mean, but when people acknowledge it and show a repeat visit, then it makes sort of me confident that we're doing a good job. Um, at the end of the day, it ends up being a practice of acupuncture. And so I've just been practicing the art of acupuncture for 44 years now. Um, and uh, I keep practicing. It's just like golf to some degree. You keep practicing.
Mm.
So like anything, and then it does become a part of your cellular being. I do honestly feel that it's a very steep cellular level now after this long length of time of practicing. Um, so it really, acupuncture is one of the things that you can study for the rest of your life, because the amount of textbooks that are being translated go so deep in relationship to 3,000-year-old information, and it's still being practiced today, and there's still translations coming out, and I do a seminar every year and I learn something every time. Every patient teaches me something to some degree. Yeah.
Yeah, the body
Mm.
is absolutely phenomenal, I must say, and I think we often underestimate how powerful our bodies are as far as self healing or as far as reversing symptoms of things. I'm really curious with your diagnosis of stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer in July 2020. So that was soon after the whole COVID thing came about,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, were there any signs that you had this initially, or how did you actually find out about it?
There was absolutely zero indication. The day before, I was at the gym. I was doing altitude training in the altitude room. It's set at 5,500 meters, and my oxygen would drop down to 75, and I'd be fine because I'd been conditioning myself um, to that type of training. So I had a lengthy day with my daughter. I was driving home from Brisbane, and it was into the evening, so I didn't have my evening meal. and I just leant down to turn on the light switch and ended up on the bed. Lucky the bed was there, to tell you the truth. And the room was spinning, uh, and it kept spinning and spinning. And so I obviously thought, well, I've got vertigo. So, time went past, and with really restricted movement for about 4 or 5 days, and then intuition kicked in my case, and I had an insight to ring the ambulance, and they took me straight to emergency. And in my case, they drained off 1.3 liters of fluid off my pericardium, which was causing dis, the imbalances. And from that fluid, then they diagnosed, and I think 2 or 3 days went past because the tests it took a while. I think the test had to go to Brisbane, to tell you the truth, and came back with the diagnosis of stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer. And I was like, I think it's a self-protective mode. I went into a fairly blank phase for quite a while. That was just disbelief. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that in my whole 40, 60 odd years. It's just such a dilemma. And I remember lying in hospital, just staring at the ceiling and not thinking about possibilities. I was just blank, to tell you the truth. It was quite a it was actually a safety mechanism, I believe, that my body and my emotional body kicked into. And then when I finally started to come through that, I intuitively heard the words, sooner or later, we're all going to go. What do you choose? And I immediately said, sooner or later, we're all going to go. I just choose later, not sooner. And that became my affirmation. It's still to this day one of my affirmations that I'll repeat to myself every day, to a great degree. I've got quite a few of my own personal affirmations that I use, but sooner or later we're all going to go. I just choose later, not sooner.
Yeah,
And that turned me around. I have to say that turned me around to make some decisions that no, I don't want to go yet. I'm not going to go yet. I'm not going to succumb to a statistics. Tell you the truth. I felt reasonably okay once they drained the fluid off. So I got about to doing my own personal research and doing everything according to medicine. I did immunotherapy. I did 2 years of immunotherapy, which I often say now it bought me a period of time because it stabilized the cancer, and it even decreased it to some degree. Not all the way, but it decreased it. And in that time, I dug into all the research that I have had available, and I was able to look for more research and ask a lot of questions from a lot of people and find out some answers about the possibilities of, recovering. Um, I've been given a diagnosis now of after 4 years of best possible outcome. And my latest PET scan didn't show any signs of cancer in my chest at all. Yeah, but it went from stage 4 back to stage 3. And in August 2023, medical professionals said now you'd be classified as stage 3 if we looked at that one. And so they said we can do radiation on that. And that was well over 12 months ago now that they did radiation. So I've had immunotherapy and radiation, but I've done a lot of work to support my body around that, whether it be a fast or whether it be change of diet, lifestyle, adjustments. I really made sure that I did the best thing for my personal healing that I knew that I could do. Exercise is still a very important facet for anybody as you get older. And there are studies out there that say that exercise really helps the mitochondria and the muscle mass And if you support muscle mass and mitochondria, then your body can take care of the energetic functions. And so then you can, you can have a healthier, more robust system. And really, it's the healthy, robust system that is doing its job effectively. It's a system that starts to become deficient in any different way that causes, to a great degree, an illness, a symptom, or a disease state to start to develop. In Chinese medicine, they call it the the layers of disease. Nothing happens just instantly. Like my cancer at stage 4 probably was developing for 10, 15 years, and even medicine knows that. And I'm at a stage now where it's not obvious on PET scan, but there's a possibility that there's microscopic levels of cancer is still in my body, and that's why I'll do consistent testing or follow-up PET scans. I gather for another 5 years. And then at any given time, anybody actually has that going on, tell you the truth. Yeah. There's nothing to be afraid of if you haven't had a diagnosis, but when you finally get the diagnosis, it's pretty scary. Absolutely. Very scary. I see it as a condition now, and I see it just another condition. Because acupuncture often talks about conditions. We don't necessarily have the medical Western classification. And so if I die with cancer when I'm get old and grey, then so be it. But I'm not going to die of it. I mean, I made a choice. I'm not going to die of it. I'm going to die, if anything, with it. And hopefully it's when I'm very old and grey, sort of thing. Because I think we all want to live long. I don't know if anybody wants to live a certain age and then go. I don't relate to that anyway, personally. Yeah.
Well, it's an extraordinary journey you've been on, and your state of mind has been absolutely crucial, I think, as part of your journey, and the fact
Oh
that
yeah.
you've got best possible outcome, whatever that means. I mean, obviously the scans are showing amazing results, and you've been able to create, I guess, some miracles in effect, in a way, with what you've done with the immunotherapy, with the fasting. I'm very curious with the immunotherapy. What does that actually look like? What happened with your body at that time? And the fasting. I mean, there's various different types of fasting, isn't there? Some people do 30 days, some people do 7 days.
Yeah.
So what exactly was involved in your journey?
Um, I was into immunotherapy within the first couple of weeks, and it's just a matter of a cannula, and you sit in the cancer ward. Tell you the truth, at the Gold Coast University Hospital, in a room that's probably 6 other people there as well, and you've got a cannula, and they bring the drug. In my case, I was put on Keytruda, which is an immunotherapy drug, and apparently there's many different types, but I was given Keytruda. That's the short, easy name for it. And you'd sit there with a cannula, and it'd be going into your body. And I never really felt anything major. I used to just, like everybody, go on my phone and do some research. Sometimes I'd listen to music, and sometimes I'd just doze. But I also knew that I needed to stay very still and keep my body in a good place. So it's quite meditative, because I'm a bit of a meditator as such. So yeah, I would also allow the Keytruda to do its job, and not go into negative thoughts or anything. I mean, it's pretty hard in the cancer ward to look around and see different states of people's health. And I stayed relaxed and as best I could, sometimes very detached and sometimes very loving to the people that were there in the same room with me. And sometimes you'd find somebody that just wanted to chat and talk and make jokes, and so you join in. So that lasted, I was doing immunotherapy every 3 weeks initially, and then it went to every 6 weeks. And that was a 2-year program that's based on the national health system. So thankfully, there was no major expenses in that area. Most of my expenses came from my integrated doctor and peripheral stuff that I did to support my body. So the medical system in Australia is fantastic from that point of view. And that's a 2-year program, though. It has its limit. And I asked the nurse at the end of the 2-year program, because it was a bit of a shock. Yeah, that's it, your last immunotherapy. That's it. We don't see you anymore. And I was like, well, what next? Because you do become to some degree dependent on that, because it's getting some sort of results, And she said, no, that most people don't live to fulfill that whole 2 years. So she said, you're very lucky that you've got this far. And then, there was then talk about if it gets bad again, or if it still progresses, which at that point in time was about 30% shrunk, but it was still present. It wasn't gone. It wasn't going ahead and growing. It hadn't spread throughout the rest of my body, so it was controlled. Um, and so that was the end of it. And there was talk of chemo, and I still debated for a long time whether to do that. But at this point in time, I still would debate it. I don't know if I'd like to do that to my body. Immunotherapy boosts the immune system, and it really makes it feel like it's hyper to some degree. Not necessarily how I felt, but inflammation becomes a current reoccurrence. And so I often say that I had diarrhea for 18 months, and I adapted a whole lifestyle to deal with the diarrhea or the loose bowels, and wasn't comfortable at all. But at the end of the day, I was weighing up the side effects versus the reason why I'm doing immunotherapy in the first place. And so my mind was able to do that. I have a positive mind in that sense, okay, we'll just put up with it and grin and bear it, and adapt the lifestyle accordingly to deal with the side effects. With what I've done since that, and it's been 2 years now, I don't have any of that at all now. So I know that my body's healed that incredibly, because back then when when I had it, I didn't think, I thought that was it. I was going to be, you know, uh, have a loose bowel for the rest of my life. But no, not that. It wasn't the case. The human body does have the capacity to heal itself, even on that level, So no more inflammation in my gut at all, and diarrhea. No, that's history in my mind. Yeah, yeah.
Extraordinary. And what about the
Mm.
fasting? What did you do there? How many days, etc.?
The research that I did, and this was ancient research from Ayurvedic medicine, Indian medicine, and also current medicine. There's a lot that you can dig into. And they all said, for some reason, the magical number of 21. And even in religion, they talk about the 21-day fast. And I never really understood, and I still don't totally understand why 21. But I saw out of the corner of my eye, it came up on my YouTube screen about cancer and fasting. And so I watched that video, and he was talking about, and it was an Indian-based booklet that he was reading from. And he talked about the 21-day fast if you've got cancer. So at that time, I was still wondering, what the hell am I going to do? Excuse the French. I was wondering, what choices do I have to do now that I don't have immunotherapy? And so I thought, okay, that's a good idea. I'll do it. And I just decided I'm going to do it. And I did more research on fasting consistently. And there are many phases your body goes through in the transition, particularly if you've never done that before in your whole life. At the age of 62 or so, here I am not eating, and I'm just drinking water. And you can have some coffee. In my case, I had coffee with a little bit of milk, not a lot. And I would say that the toughest time was up to day 10, but there were a lot of changes in that time, that sometimes you felt really energetic, and then other times you felt really tired and fatigued. But that's the process of autophagy, when the body goes into autophagy, which is approximately 48 to 72 hours, when your body is really in that autophagic phase, that it's actually taking care of, all the disruptive cells in the body. And then I saw another video that actually was a professor of metabolic mitochondria and metabolic health. And he was talking about how cancer, he believed, was from the metabolic approach and not necessarily the genetic approach, although there are genetic reasons why people get cancer. But he was talking about from the metabolic approach, and the famous researcher back in the day was a doctor called Warburg, and so they call it the Warburg effect, and people can research that. And he said that it's very possible that at day 14 of a fast, the body turns on and develops its own cancer and tumor cells, because there's no more glucose in the system at that point in time, and cancer cells feed on glucose based on the Warburg effect. So I remember on day 10, I woke up and I was just woke up in my normal bedroom, and I felt like I was in the hospital room the second night after I was given the diagnosis, looking at the sunrise, to tell you the truth. I was there. I was 100% there. And I knew that at day 10, I was deleting those traumatic memory cells out of my body. My body was actually in a healing process. And so I felt really confident from day 10 and moving forward to day 21. I often say that at day 17, my body was just on fire as regards to energy. I just was well and truly. I mean, I tell everybody I exercised 3 times in that day because I felt so energetic, you know. And I completed everything at day 21 because that's what I said. That was the intention. I did have a thought that I didn't need to eat. I wasn't hungry at all. I wasn't starving, and I could go longer. But because I had made that personal commitment of 21 days and achieved it quite easily by the time I got there, I decided to refeed. They call it refeeding, where you start off with light meals, soup or vegetables back then, and then slowly build up over about a 2 or 3 day period to wake your system back up to being able to digest food properly again. I lost about 10 kilos, and that necessarily was excess weight that I was carrying, because at the age of 60, I had accumulated a degree of visceral fat in my system. And so that's all gone now because I've never regained it back based on that. And visceral fat is a very unhealthy state that gets into the organs, and the organs get surrounded by this fat that actually then causes hormone disruptions in the system that can actually be precursors to inflammation and disease states. And that's science. That's not acupuncture. That's pure science. That explains what happens when a person accumulates too much visceral fat in their body. I wasn't overweight, but I was on that scale, to tell you the truth. My highest weight that I ever got to in my life was 90 kilograms. And on the BMI, that's classified as the low scale of overweight. But I hit it pretty well to some degree, being an exercise person. Now I sit around about 75 kilos, 76 kilos, which is a very healthy state based on my height and so forth, based on the BMI scale, body mass index scale. Yeah.
And what's your height?
So I'm 169.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Same
think,
as me.
yeah.
It's me, 169 centimeters. There we go. Exactly the same height. Fancy that. That's an extraordinary journey there you've been on. So the 21-day fast, that was after all the immunotherapy, is that right? After the 2 years of that?
Oh yeah. There are many other things that I've done throughout the whole process, and there are very consistent things that I continue to do. they're really outside normal thinking. So I really don't want to really talk about that at this point in time. They're ideas and solutions that I pertain to, that, if patient requires that, I would discuss it with them, and talk about that. But I say 21-day fast is free. Do it. Just, if you've got troubles, then do the research to make yourself feel confident, and then just do it. You might need a bit of support during the fast that some people may need. It may be good to have a doctor actually monitor your bloods all the way through. It's not necessarily, um, it's something that you need to do blindly, and there are metabolic doctors out there that will actually support people. There's a gentleman that I watched his story, and he fasted for 6 days, but he did 6 back-to-back marathons without any food at all, only water. He did condition himself into that, and then did 6 marathons daily, um, in a row, and only lost 3 kilograms. And he drank a lot of water, and he had his bloods done consistently with a medical doctor in Sydney, I believe. And so his story was that you don't necessarily become deficient when you don't eat. Your body has a lot of reserves in energy and calories and so forth. So it's not necessarily the case that your body will go into a crisis place, particularly with back-to-back marathons. I don't know anything longer than 6 days, to tell you the truth, but primal times and native Aboriginals, they wandered through the desert for many, many days without food, even sometimes with very poor water resources. So, yeah, the body can take care of itself if it has to adapt to certain environments and situations. And I think, with the knowledge we have these days, it's about resourcing that information to a great degree, not just sit back and think it's hopeless, I'm going to die. That's not my personality. And so, to a great degree, I now know that you can heal your own body, but I can't say that for anybody else except for myself, because it's my own personal experience. You see about these days, if I had to go to a doctor or something, and they were talking about, you know, cancer, as particularly, I'd say, well, have you had cancer and have you healed yourself? It's just my way of thinking. If you don't go to a swimming instructor if he doesn't know how to swim, and so, um, all I can say is that, you know, I have the experience. I can't guarantee. I mean, we're complementary medicine as an acupuncturist. I'm not a medical doctor as such. I don't do bloods. I send the patient, and I'll say, go and find a doctor, or I can refer you to a doctor that actually does all the bloods, and we can pull it all together if we want to understand the scientific side of it and get a good evaluation of what's going on. You know, I can just fill in my little gap, which is to support the system to be strong and robust, to hopefully take care of business. And then lifestyle changes, behavioral patterns, mental attitude, I think is the big part of it, because if you don't want to live, then, it's hopeless. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I often say that if you have depression, you can't have happiness. If you have happiness, you can't have depression. So which one do you want to choose? you know so
Mm.
be happy that we wake up every morning and our eyes open and we can stand up and get moving. um
Yes.
doesn't matter what's going on, truly. I mean, today on the Gold
Mm.
Coast it's raining, and I'm not concerned. I just make sure I don't get wet. I go in
Mm.
to
Mm.
my car. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's all perspective, right? It's like the yin yang of life. There's light and there's
exactly.
dark, right? There's light and there's
Yeah,
dark. So your 21-day fast, did you do just water? What fluids did you do during that 21 days?
yeah, just water, and,
Just
and I would still have an average of 1 or 2 coffees a day, because I'm just enjoyed it as it's my treat. And I've done genetic testing, and then this is where I've done science, where I've done genetic testing, and they've done, my friend that actually did it at the same time, his genetic tests came back, and his genetics weren't compatible with coffee. And he often said that. He said he has to stop coffee around about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, otherwise he can't sleep. I can have a coffee and go straight to bed. It's always been that way. I used to joke when I was a teenager. People would say I can't have coffee. I go, well, doesn't bother me at all, and it never has. And
That's
I'm
interesting.
talking about sometimes a Nespresso, and then go, okay, that's good, and then go to bed. So it's a
Amazing.
genetic thing, though. That's definitely a genetic thing. It's not.
Right.
It's not my willpower at all, or my ability, or my tiredness. It's just genetics. Yeah. So
Yes.
there are some genetic strengths. I've got black hair. You've got um, red hair, I think.
Well, yes,
Red,
ready blonde. Yeah.
reddy blonde. Yeah, yeah. So that's just genetics.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Well, there's coffee and there's coffee too. I must say, I love the strong coffee. I grew up on Turkish coffee back in the day. It was like,
Wow.
one little shot of that to keep you up for 8 hours. Well, it did for me back then anyway. Nowadays, I love decent, strong coffee. Whereas the instant coffee, a lot of it's full of pesticides, a lot of crap. That's why when people have instant
Yeah.
coffee, they get that metallic taste in your mouth. It's really not good for you, folks. If you're having
Yeah.
instant coffee, very bad news. Look into it. If you look into it, you probably won't want to ever drink instant coffee again on that point. So I wouldn't recommend personally a fast with instant coffee. I don't think that's going to be very good for you.
No, no, no. I was definitely organic coffee. That's for sure. Yeah.
Organic, good, decent coffee.
Yeah.
Now, Robin, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, with the acupuncture that you do, you help people with things like chronic pain. It says on your website here, relieving lower back pain, neck pain, osteoarthritis, migraines, tension type headaches, nausea, vomiting, allergic rhinitis, which is hay fever, anxiety, depression, insomnia, menstrual disorders. I mean, I'm blown away how much acupuncture can help people. Can you share a bit about why acupuncture is so powerful?
Um, in a very simple way, we see everything as a condition, and we see everything from a combination of different imbalances in the system. And those imbalances will then lead to particular signs and symptoms. And that's a very simple approach to it. But um, to understand that we have 12 organs in Chinese medicine, there's the 12 meridian systems, and so there's really 12 permutations of 12, so 144 different types of combinations can occur when you're looking at a human body, and that there's more, tell you the truth, but I'm just talking 12 by 12 is 144. And so in our diagnosis, and really I think Chinese medicine is really founded on the ability to diagnose, and that takes practice and years and years of consistency. I mean, I once read when I was when I was practicing, actually, I read that an acupuncturist apprenticeship is 21 years. And then at 21 years of doing it, you could say, yeah, I'm gifted at what I do. And I can honestly say that at 21 years, there was a difference in how I practiced. There's a difference in the quality of work that I did. Having healed in myself to where I am, I often say right now that my acupuncture insight is just gone to the moon. It's just so another level altogether. And that's like anything, the skill gets more refined and perfected, and the ability to actually sense. And that's really where the old masters of Chinese medicine that did a lot of the translations, and you hear about one of my favorite, and he wasn't an acupuncturist, it's about Lao Tzu, and he had an incredible capacity to write memes and poetry, and I did hear that he had a team of other writers that actually helped support that, and he put his name to it. So that's how acupuncture got developed. There was not necessarily one scholar that wrote the textbooks, although there are many scholars, and then there was one person that took the benefit of it, and then classified it as what we classify as the Bible of acupuncture. There's many different texts. The Yellow Emperor is probably one of the major textbooks that we studied when we were students, you know, and then still look it up every now and then to find out what's going on, you know.
With your healing journey, did you use acupuncture?
In the early days, I did. Yeah, when I first got out of hospital, I was just a mess. I really was. And a very good friend of mine who's unfortunately, he's developed cancer now, and he's recovering from that. Um, yeah, he backed me, definitely. Yeah, and so I had some support treatments with him to get back on my feet mentally, physically, and emotionally. I mean, emotionally was the key factor in relationship to, you know, kicking in the healing capacity within my body. So support is really what we do. We're complementary as such. We're not chasing um, cancer as such. We don't treat cancer as such. We treat the body, and in the treating of the body, then it takes care of any conditions that could be prevailing. And so I knew that. You know, I knew that I needed to do what I needed to do to treat my body. Um, in the early days, I actually, this is something I haven't shared, and I did write about it in my book, was um, I decided to pull people into my life that were what I called my inner circle. And that inner circle were people that loved me for who I am and what I was going through. Right. And unfortunately, there were people that I thought were close friends that had to move out of my inner circle because they weren't there. They couldn't cope with my situation. Um, my daughter's mother, which we're very good friends now, she became my inner circle again, even though we never got back into a relationship. I can honestly say that my daughter's mother became my inner circle. My daughter's mother worked in a pharmacy, so she was really medical, and she could actually tell me a little bit about the medications that they were prescribing. At the time, I was on heart medications for about a year, you know. So she gave me a certain level of support because she had that knowledge of pharmacy. My daughter was brilliant. I mean, she was only a 16-year-old, but she was really good and supported me, even though she was scared, like any child would be. You know, she was very scared. But I think she really stood up and supported me. And then a lot of my friends and some of my patients rallied around me, and they became my immediate circle. And I don't know if you've ever read the book Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
No.
It's a love story, and he talks about how he struggled in his early years with love, and that he found love in many different women, not just one female, not one partner. Eventually, through the process, he found all the love that he ever desired in one person, which was the miracle of his story. I found love in a lot of friends that were my inner circle, and I think that's a very important stepping stone. And I'm not talking about love that is actually catering to me. They were just genuine friends that called it as it was, not necessarily, you know, catered to my whims and my emotions. Because again, when you're in a dark place, I I couldn't think straight. And so that they became my inner circle. And I often say, find your inner circle, and ask people to leave your inner circle that are not necessarily conducive to where you're at, you know. And they come and go. It's just, you know, the saying that a season, a reason, or a lifetime. Yeah, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
lot of truth. Yeah.
Yes,
And
so
so they were
important.
my seasonal people that were for a reason. And from my point of view, I still see them as a lifetime, but some of them have moved out, and they're not the same anymore because they know that I've recovered. So, you know, I
Mhm.
see them as a lifetime connection because of what they supported me with. But they're on their way and they're doing their thing now. They're on their journey, you know. They might
Yes.
return again. I'm pretty sure they will at some stage, you know. Yeah,
Yes, it's interesting the people that come and go through our lives, and you think, well, every 7 years we have completely new body because we have completely new cells,
exactly.
This is
Yeah.
where they sort of, 7-year itch in relationships as well. If you're not growing together, you're growing apart in general.
Yeah.
This topic is such a hot topic. Can the body self-heal? Now, it's interesting. I saw a documentary a while ago called Cancer, the Forbidden Cures, and it showed about 13 different cures for cancer that came out back in the day that were all shut down by pharmaceutical companies, which I found fascinating, right? And then I heard about through COVID, a whole lot of natural health doctors were either killed or had their lives threatened, and one of them was Don Tolman. And Don Tolman was here on the Gold Coast for a while.
Yeah.
And Don Tolman was saying that more people die from the treatment of cancer than from cancer itself. I remember him saying that on stage about 15 years ago. And of course, Tyler Tolman has now carried on that legacy. And Tyler Tolman is a massive believer in fasting as well. And I know that a lot of people I've spoken to who have fasted have talked about how much energy that they've had at the end of the fast and how powerful it was for their own self-healing. And of course, as we said in our disclaimer at the beginning, these are not necessarily, typically going to happen for you. We're sharing what we know to be true, okay, from our experiences. So I always say to people, question everything. I had a friend a few years ago. He was 55 and he was diagnosed with cancer. And he said, Aldwyn, I'm going to be dead in 3 months. And sure enough, he was dead in 3 months, right? And I'm sure that if he didn't believe that, if he actually looked into some alternative treatments or some different ways of doing things, I truly believe he would be alive to this day. Now, personally, in my family, my dad has had 4 heart attacks, prostate cancer, diabetes. My mum's got dementia. Now, they're still chugging along. Now, apparently 70% of people who have a heart attack die on their first heart attack. Now, my dad was taking a lot of pharmaceutical products, and he still is, because he does. And my dad actually says, my parents migrated from Turkey in 1970 to Australia. And Dad said if he was living in Turkey and he had that first heart attack, he said he would be dead right now. So there's definitely a place for traditional medicine. And I believe now more and more people are looking holistically for their healing. They're looking at different ways of doing things, because we've also known that there's been a lot of doctor error over time. In fact, hundreds of thousands of people die every year on doctor error as well, because doctors are human beings. They make mistakes sometimes. And this is where taking your own health into your own hands sometimes, I think, is really important. Now, the reason my dad said that the reason he'd be dead in Turkey is because the ambulance over there, they would have taken ages to get to him on his first heart attack, which he says he would have definitely died. So my dad is a big believer in pharmaceuticals, and he's also cut back on certain medication, and he's looked into certain medication, and he's realized he's had massive side effects from some of the medication he was on. So, for example, he believes that he got diabetes from side effects of medication from his heart condition, right? And so, do your own research into all of this, but it's interesting to notice. And we've got some great comments coming in here. Thank you so much, everyone who's joined us live. We've got Marsha Schultz here on Facebook. She says, most definitely, I healed myself naturally from MS in 2019, multiple sclerosis. Well done, Marsha. That's amazing. Dame Rita Rose, beautiful Dame Rita Rose. Thank you for the red peacock lipsticks. Dame's a sponsor of mine. Very interesting, she says. Thank you so much, Dame Rita. Congratulations on your damehood. Deb Norman says coffee doesn't keep her awake either. That's interesting. I have heard some people say that. Deb says, I drink organic and barely half a teaspoon. Can't do strong. Okay, thank you for that, Deb. Guy Brown's with us on LinkedIn. I like the little cross in the doctor's glasses. The little cross in the Okay, well, there you go. Maybe the angels are with us. We were talking about angels just before.
That wasn't deliberate. I just like the size of the glasses and so it's there. I know. And my patient once said, "Yeah, there's a little cross on the arm." That's like, yeah, I can't see it though. So
There you go. The angels are here for sure. Deb
yeah.
Norman, absolutely agree. Pharma has a lot to answer for. Thank you, Deb. Thank you for your opinions there. And also on Instagram, we have a few people. Now, I'm not able to share your comments on screen for those on Instagram because you're on a different tab the way this is set up. So just so you know. However, I do want to thank our Instagram people as well. Snow Drangan joined us. Robert Mull says, for sure, the body can heal itself if you treat them on the right direction with patience. I healed my body twice when I had problems with stomach, and second when I had issues with back, lower pain in the back. John Perry has joined us. Hello, John. Robert says all we need to do is discover where the pain comes from and why, and then start to study with yourself and people who have similar experiences how to treat the pain. Well, that's definitely a great way to go.
I
Robert?
never knew anybody that had stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer. I'm going to be honest with you. Um, I just went into my research and my understanding of Chinese medicine and treated myself and then sought other support outside of that. But I never knew anybody.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it was
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you say, it's terminal, right? So people, if they did have it, maybe they're not going to hang around long in general. But the fact that you're here 4 years on and you've got best possible outcome, and you've done a few sort of simple things, I guess, you've found your own way and your own healing route, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we can see here now 4 years on, you look amazing. You look healthy. I've met you in person. There's nothing about you that looks sick in any way. I must say,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
interesting because there's a part of my personality that wants to let the past be the past. And there was when I got the best possible outcome, I spent a whole month of October in a really neutral place because, okay, it's done. I've crossed that line of getting to a point where I'm clear to the degree that they can classify it. And I honestly thought to myself, well, what's next? And I don't, and I thought to myself, and people ask me about writing my book, and I've just completed the 2 books, and it really focuses on the intellect and the feeling part of the healing side of being a whole person, because we have 2 natures. We have an intellect and a feeling part. And so there's emotional patterns that I was stuck in that actually I found out relates to the lungs. And so, yeah, I had to dig deep into those patterns of emotion that I carried my whole life. And then intellectually understanding what to do and how to, change my diet and exercise and everything. That was just learning for me. That was all about learning. So I worked with both sides, and I decided I'm going to write the book because I kept being asked, "Are you going to write a book now? Are you going to write a book?" And so I thought, well, I have a responsibility. In all honesty, I feel it's a responsibility. It's just another extension of what I do as a responsibility and as a researcher, and with a knowledge that I have done it. I'm a great believer. If I can do it, anybody can do it, because I'm not necessarily a genius. I'm just very disciplined. Yeah, and focused on when I want to understand something, I go for it. I don't give up
mm,
until I find the answer,
I think
Um,
that's wonderful. Yeah, wonderful.
yeah,
And
and if anything, if my work helps another person do that, and I never see them again, I'll be very happy because they're off doing their thing. There was a mentor that I had in my 20s, and his name was Dr. Francisco Cole. And Dr. Francisco Cole, his motto, he founded the inner peace movement, would you believe? Inner peace, not outer peace, inner peace. And his motto was, give a hungry man a fish, he'll be back again tomorrow for another fish. Give him the tools and teach him how to fish, then he's free for his own resources. And so that became very much another one of my little mottos. I found my own resources. I didn't have tools back then when I was diagnosed. And now I do have tools that work for me, obviously, because I've got to this stage. But I never was confident until I got to this stage with best possible outcome. They're my favorite words, best possible outcome. I never even imagined that an oncologist would say that to me, best possible
mm,
outcome. I was
mm,
hoping he'd say NED, which is no evidence of disease, but they don't say that. I said, well, am I NED? And he just changed the subject and said, you've had the best possible outcome. And I drove home from the oncology appointment thinking, well, yeah, well, what's better than best? There's nothing better
yeah,
than best. Best
yeah.
possible outcome. And so, yeah, it's one of my favorite sayings. And I would affirm that anybody's going through an uncomfortable situation, whether it be disease or life or emotions or stress or whatever's going on, just say, I'm going for the best possible outcome, because what else can you do apart from the best,
Yes,
You
I
know,
love
you
that.
don't have to be better than anybody else. You don't have to, be in a competitive game. It's just the best possible outcome. Yeah.
Yes, it's like having the best possible life, right? Isn't that what we all strive for? Having our best possible,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's
And
yeah,
everybody's life is different. And that makes us
yes.
unique. We're not, unfortunately, I do see the way medicine has gone, and they have to do it that way based on science, is it tends to be one size fits all. And when I treat patients, I don't do one size fits all. It's about what is your body exhibiting now that I can help you with now. You've got a past history. Now let's head you into a healthy state. And hopefully we can change the trajectory of your health. That's the plan always. And then each step along the way, we reassess how the person's going. And
Mm,
so I often say that I changed the trajectory of where I was headed to a better trajectory. Where we can now land on the moon and not head off into wild space, because that when they did the moon landing, it was never on track. It was like thousands of times the space or the rocket was off track, until they had to continually readjust to get to the moon. You know, so I remember that as a little kid growing up, watching the first landing on the moon, and then understanding it and reading about the rocket wasn't on track the whole time. But it's not a straight line from A to B. It's like, you know, because
mm.
that's a long distance. And so it's a continual adjustment process that we're doing at any given time to have a well-being state. And my clinic is called Acupuncture Wellness. And wellness is a state of living. It's not necessarily you get to a point and that's it. It's a state of living, it's a state of behavior. And then you have aging, and aging is another factor that, and I noticed my body changed when I turned 53. I mean, 53 was like, what's going on? 2 weeks ago, I felt like a young person. Now I'm thinking things are a little going down as regards to my aging process. And I noted that as okay, that's the aging process. Um, yeah, it's
Mm,
unfortunately we haven't mastered the art of non-aging yet.
mm.
Longevity is part of Chinese medicine, but you know, there's a lot of people doing research to live a lot longer. That's for sure. That's
Yes, I
not
think
me.
well, I think we could learn a lot from those who are in the blue zones, so to speak, those that live to over 200 years of age or so in certain parts of the world, or have lived that long, and to see what they did, and how much they lived off the land, and how they exercised, they had clean water, they all that sort of thing, the organic food. I mean, now there's so much toxicity out there. Let's
Mm,
face it, it takes a lot more nowadays, I think, to stay healthy longer than it did way back in the day when we didn't have so many pollutants in the world.
yeah,
And
unfortunately, yeah.
you were at the event that we had recently at Currumbin RSL, the Stop the Toxic Fire
Yeah.
Ant program, right? And it's
Mm,
interesting how much poison is going into the environment right now with that toxicity. However, with awareness, with information, get informed, get empowered is what I always say to people. And I'm very grateful. There's so many great responses here on the live stream. I just want to come to a few more. Good to see you. Annalisa Mopio Jane is with us on Instagram. Robert Mull says everybody is different, and different pains have different pains. That's why we need to take this as a journey. And in the long term, it will pay off if we are patient and we do our best. Yes, I think that's beautiful. Robin Woodford has joined us. Good to see you, Robin. Robert says,
oh, I
as
know
they
that
said,
one.
yes, Robin,
Yeah.
our friend
Hi, Rob.
from Growth Club. Robert Mull says, as they said, Mother Nature made for us all that we need to heal our body. Robert says, quote, if Mother Nature didn't make it, don't take it. All right, that's a good one there. Robin
I mean,
says, yeah.
90 years, 100 years ago, there's a lot that we eat didn't exist. It's been
Mm,
produced. And so the human body hasn't evolved that quickly. I mean, we know genetics, and the human body hasn't evolved that quickly. So, modern diet has a big question mark against it. I mean, absolutely.
yes,
And then
yes.
genetically modified foods that again didn't exist. Yeah,
Mm, mm,
it's pretty challenging, and what can we do about it? Really, I don't believe that we can. All we can do is increase our health, vitality, and wellness, and live a lifestyle that hopefully will dodge all the bullets that are being fired at us. You know?
mm, mm,
Yeah,
mm.
yeah.
And Robin Woodford says here, I had unbearable pain from my hip down, my whole leg, and especially my knee. It had me crying, and the pain was so bad. Since she started using something called Fix, I know a lot of people using this Fix product. I'm not advocating any products here, but I know some people are swearing by this new thing called Fix. The pain is gone, and I can now sit and work on my computer all day. And then she says also, by the way, I'm waiting for an urgent hip replacement. Well, I hope that goes well for you there, Robin. That sounds kind of painful. Susie Cheel has joined us. Robert Mull says, Robin, I'm sorry to hear your pain. Yes, in your situation, doctor is a great option to help your body with all the best with the replacement. And Robert says coffee is more healthy without sugar, same as herbal tea. Yeah, absolutely. Sugar's a big baddie, right? Sugar's shocking as far as calcifies the bones and all sorts of things. Sugars are really, really.
It's addictive. The problem is it's addictive, and that's why it's become such an epidemic of sugar problems. And sugar's in everything that is processed. By the way, it's in
Yes.
all the foods, and
Oh,
they even genetically clone it into food so it tastes better. Fruit, some fruits have too much sugar in them. Yeah, that didn't exist 90 to
yeah.
100 years ago. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And we've got Orr Musant has joined us. Good to see you on Instagram. On LinkedIn, we've got Guy Brown here. Hello, Guy. Good to see you. Very interesting stuff. He says he's given us a smile. That's nice, Guy. We're sending you a smile back. Thank you for the love. Really appreciate it. And for those who have self-healed in some way, please share your journey with us. Share
Yeah.
what has helped you in your journey. I had a friend who had another friend who had cancer, a guy called Tony Dean, a few years ago, and he didn't think he was going to live very long. And I think that was like maybe 6-7 years ago. As far as I know, he's still going strong. Now, I remember that when he got cancer, every Tom, Dick, and Harry had their opinion of what he should do, right? And at the end of the day, he went with what he believed was right. Now, did you have a similar situation, Robin, when you got cancer? And did everyone sort of say, do this, do that? Did you have any of
I
that
have
happen?
a very good friend, and I doubt whether he's watching today, but he came to the hospital and visited me, and he's a very scientific person. And I'm talking real science. Even his personality is quite bland. And he looked at me and he said, 10% survive what you've got. He was being really, really factual and honest. And it wasn't what I wanted to hear that day, I have to tell you. So I immediately took it and put it on the shelf. I just threw it out and put it on the shelf. I didn't let it come in and mull over it. I bumped into him at the shopping center 12 months later, and I said, "Guess what? I think I'm in the 12%, the 10%." 2 years later, I said, "I think I'm definitely in the 10%." When I got my best possible outcome, I texted him and said, "I'm definitely in the 10% now," and he
Yeah,
said,
absolutely.
"Well done." So
Yes.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that wanted to give advice. I mean, in my immediate circle, they leave me alone because I tend to be pretty stubborn in wanting to listen to other people's opinion, to tell you the truth, because they knew that my work I do, and I used to always, be at a dinner party and suggesting they try things all the time. And my daughter got sick of me hearing that. She grew up with it all, you
Yeah,
know,
I
because
can imagine.
when
Yeah.
you know things, you want to share it, you want to help
Mm,
other. Well, if you
mm.
do this, you won't have so much mucus, that, you know.
Yes. Yes.
Chocolate, cheese, ice cream, and milk cause too much dairy products, which is mucus problems. I mean, most people
Yes.
know that now. I knew that in the 80s when I was studying it. Pineapples can cause arthritic rheumatoid pain.
Mm,
Too
mm.
much pineapple,
Well,
acidic.
I remember reading a book called Heal. Was it Heal Your Life? Heal Your Life. There was a book I read, the chapter 10 of this book. I think it was called Heal Your Life. And chapter 10 was about how we were not meant to be suckling from cows, about the dangers of dairy. And since then I've heard about the dairy industry and what happens to the cows, and how and it's like, it's absolutely horrible what I've heard about the dairy industry. And it'd be enough, I think, to turn anyone off having milk if you actually saw what actually happened behind the scenes. And then recently I saw a documentary called Food Inc., which came out back in 2008. There's been a Food Inc. 2 now, which also blew my mind into the meat industry and into Monsanto and into the genetically modified food and all of that. Oh my gosh, it's a minefield when you start to go down and look into, what is best for your health, and what you think you're eating or consuming that you think might be good for you that perhaps isn't, right? So a question I ask you all here is, what do you believe to be true that isn't? And to do your own research. What do you believe to be true?
Research is the first thing. I mean, my diet, and I'm not going to go into major detail on that because I don't know, I don't think it's appropriate right now, but I can talk about it another time. The proper human diet is really what I focus on. What was around when we were in the caves, what was around in prehistoric times, because our bodies still exist in that state genetically, you know, before modern industrialization came over and took over the planet. But I don't go out and hunt my own food, because I'm not a hunter. I don't have a rifle. I don't do that. But I know people who do, to tell you the truth, as a sport. And I have tried, deer. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty lean, to tell you the truth. Yeah, yeah. So sustainable practices is probably the way I look at anything at this point in time. It's a sustainable practice. Regenerative farming, I think, is very important in relationship to, the animals creating enough nutrients back into the soil and so forth. So, they're all important aspects that um, that sustain healthy living to a great degree.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
And our body tells us what it needs. It's just, are we listening to our body? And this is, coming back to originally what you're saying, is tuning in and listening. And Philip Kozis says here on LinkedIn, good to see you, Philip. Great discussion. Yes, the body can heal itself, but needs your help. Needs your help to heal itself. Yeah.
You need to be involved in your own life. Yeah, absolutely. What you were
Yeah.
saying to me, you need to be involved in your own body. Don't
Yeah.
don't disempower oneself. And that's what I did in the oncology department when the oncologist looked at me and told me and insinuated all the different outcomes. I believe the fact that, okay, well, that's statistics. It's not necessarily to do with me, And so then I kept my own empowerment, which I think is one of the first steps is to empower yourself. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I think is really important, and particularly in cases of cancer, that there was a researcher that is now passed away. He passed away during the COVID regime, the COVID problems, and his research was cancer, and that he often would work with people and they were chronic or they were critical stage 4 type cancers that would recover. Now, I read a lot of stories that people have recovered, which is very uplifting when you're going through it yourself. So I honestly recommend people, go through some stories if you can, that are people that actually have recovered from very critical stage 4, illnesses, cancer. And others that didn't have stage 4 had early signs, they end up dying. It's just sort of like there was no parameter in relationship to what stage they were at. When they stage a disease, particularly cancer, it's staged based on how they classify it, and that's all it is. It's a classification. To a great degree. It's not necessarily a death sentence, but there's no stage 5. It's always that's it, stage 4. And so he often found people recover from stage 4, which I took on board. It's like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. You have to think, if I can do it, I can do it. And then suddenly die in a car accident, a month later or 2, which is really quite scary if you think about it. They spend all their time recovering from a critical illness, and then terminal illness and then dying in a car accident. And he defined it that everybody needs to address. He believed that cancer was an exit plan. And it's, again, it's a positive way of looking at a terminal illness, is to say they've set up an exit plan. And so I had to examine that within myself. Am I causing some sort of exit plan here because of whatever reason, you know? And I know the reasons for me personally. I don't need to go into that in detail, but that's what I often work with anybody. And I was talking to a lady just morning that she was in Holland, and with modern technology, I'm doing global type consultations now. And you know, I spoke to her about her exit plan because of what was going on, and she's going to take some time to look at that, even though she was asking me about other things, mostly diet and things like that, more external factors to support her body. But I said that really the key factor to begin this journey of self-healing and wanting to do it is take 150% responsibility of how you created it. You can't blame just the outer world and blame, you know, the situation. You can if you're in a really not a healthy situation, you know, breathing bad smoke and drinking polluted water, but we still have responsibility to get out of that situation if you want to be healthy. And
Yeah.
so taking that responsibility is the key, because when you talk about a terminal illness, you're talking about life and death. There's nothing else. There's no grey areas. You don't half die and half live. It's either live or die. It's black and white. It's yin and yang in its full sense. And, you know, I joke, I'm a yin yang person because that's my study, yin and yang, the opposite duality and polarities that yin and yang explains here on in life. But in spiritual sense, there's no such thing as yin and yang. When they talk about dimensions beyond the earth plane, yin and yang don't exist because it's no longer comprehensible based on the left brain and the right brain, logical thinking versus the sensory part, you see. And so understanding it from that point of view gives you a foundation or parameters to work with, like a framework. And then within that framework, then it gives us a form of guidance. But, you know, sometimes our brain gets expanded because of new experiences and new studies that are coming out. And so I follow the medical model a lot because I want to find out what's going on, you know. I want to share this because I think it's very important for our listeners, particularly those in Australia. There's a study that's now been approved in Australia, and they've had breast cancer screenings, they've had bowel cancer screenings, you know, for a long time here in Australia. Now they're starting lung cancer screenings for a particular demographics of people. And that apparently has been rolled out in 2025, I think July 2025. And so I honestly recommend anybody that is qualifies do the cancer screenings, because, you know, I could have been diagnosed 10 years before it happened and would not have ended up in such a terminal state, you know, that I had to then pull myself back from, because there is possibilities of early diagnosis. It's just you don't think, well, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go and have a PET scan to check. Well, these type of screenings are designed to actually define whether you've got early signs of lung cancer, because they know that lung cancer incidents are on the rise. And so obviously that's now become a part of our health system here in Australia. So when that rolls out and you go to your doctor and he suggests it's an idea, don't be scared, you know, go for it, you know. Jump in, male and female, in my opinion, you know. There are people that, in my research, that had lung cancer, and I don't know if they're alive or passed now, but I saw I think I saw one woman in Perth on the news, and she never smoked a day in her life. And so it's not necessarily because if you smoke or not. I mean, my father had a nightclub when I was younger, so we were around that environment. And this is in the 80s when they didn't have, you know, didn't have to have smoking laws in the same way that they exist now. So, you know, it was normal incidents that would be there, and people would be standing right beside you smoking like crazy. It's just the way it was when back in the 80s in the nightclub industry, especially. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, so I think prevention is always better than cure if you can get tested earlier. I must say, every time I've had blood tests done, it always blows me away what is found in there. High levels of mercury, low iron, all those kind of things that
Yeah.
I've had in my blood, which kind of blew me away in the past. So it's always good to get checked wherever possible, I believe, and to
Yeah, that's
see.
taking advantage. I say take advantage of the medical system that exists, particularly
Mm,
in Australia. I mean, we're very lucky in Australia that a lot of that's provided in the national health system. It really
mm,
is, a great benefit. Tell you the truth, yeah, it's
mm.
fantastic. Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've got a few more comments here. Holly Johnson, good to see you, Holly. She says, I love this. It's always a challenge to hear diverse things. And ultimately, we must first believe we are worthy to live and heal, and then to seek all resources which we believe will help us. Sometimes we have to accept that we believe what we believe is not working, and change our beliefs while we visit new things that work for
Yeah.
us. Yes, wise words there. And she also says, this is why I seek free range, pasture raised, least manipulated food. And she says here also, today I saw a woman eating berries from the package as she left the grocery store. I imagine 98% of people do this believing it's healthy while they eat the poisons on their fruits. Yes, well,
Mm.
that's the thing, Holly. Absolutely. Who knows what it's been sprayed with, right? She says, yes, we need help sometimes, and to know when that help isn't right for us. Be in control of self. Yes, know thyself, right? Know thyself, heal thyself. Holly, beautiful. Renee says, I knew a beautiful Indonesian lady who passed of lung cancer and never smoked. Thank you for that,
Mm.
Renee Farrell. Good to see you, Renee, on Facebook. Thank you so much. We are coming almost to the end of our show. Is there any final things you'd like to share, Robin, around this topic? Can you self-heal?
I think if you have a purpose and a passion in life, then it keeps every day another adventure. And so, most people who give up hope, hope is a really key factor, I think. You
Mm,
know, there's always hope. There's always hope. No matter which way we look at it, there's always hope. And so, couple that with a form of purpose, I think is really important. I don't know. I come from, the Asian background, and Asian culture is to leave something positive on the planet to some degree. I mean, Japanese really think about their grandchildren when they're building their wealth. They think of what they can leave behind for their grandchildren. And I think that is in all cultures, but I think it's got really worn weak in many areas because of the breakdown in relationships and the breakdown of the family unit. And unfortunately, I mean, yeah, it's broken down to a great degree. There are a lot of family members that don't even know, their own grandchildren. And that's must be pretty sad for some people, particularly of the older generation. Um,
mm,
and so, yeah, that sense of purpose and hope is a key. Now, if you can't actually have genetic family around you, then be open to the idea of having your greater family of mankind, because effectively there were family members with me that I couldn't keep them in my inner circle because family sometimes is too close and they irritate you,
yes,
particularly in the Chinese family, they can they can be irritating, and I often say that. So I had a
yes.
lot of other people that were, of normal Australian backgrounds, that I felt that were really important for me to have around me personally, male and female, by the way, because I think the yin and the yang of how we interact is dependent on your personality. And women sometimes need more women around them in their sense, and men need other warriors. I mean, I have a few warrior friends that you wouldn't think that they're very much in that mindset of being the warrior and the protector.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really, really crucial. And to get that, I do believe everything happens for us, not to us. Okay. So coming back to what you said about taking 100% responsibility. And I mean, look now how you're inspiring people, Robin, with your story, right? I mean, I would say definitely you're in the top 10%, probably even the top 1% here. However, you took your life into your own hands as far as you decided which way it was going to go. You didn't just listen to one GP and just go and get chemotherapy, as a lot of people would probably do, which, I know a lot of people have also died from chemo. So, do your own research on that one. But, this can be really abrasive treatment, that can actually knock all the good and the bad out of your body. It's kind of like antibiotics, it knocks the good and the bad bacteria out of your body. So you need to do your own research, and you need to do what you believe is right for you by doing your own research and by having a great inner circle of people that are going to support you. Know that you're not alone in this. Most likely there will be someone else who's gone through a similar journey, and learning from the wisdom of our elders and from those who've been down this path before us. And hopefully this show today will inspire some hope in people who might be struggling a little bit right now.
Yeah. I mean, going back to consent is the key word. And consent is really something that it's even built into the medical model. If you understand that, you have to have consent from the doctor on what they're doing for you. And that's why you have to sign the forms of consent. And so if you don't give consent, then effectively they're breaking the law. I have to give consent to say exactly what I'm doing when I'm putting in acupuncture needles. I'm ready to do the acupuncture now. I'm going to treat your lower back and I'm going to put in needles and you'll feel this level of discomfort. Effectively, I'm asking and getting their consent, And so at that point in time, I'm in congruency with how to respect the other person's free will and to understand that they're a human being too. You can't just sort of allow an egotistical person, practitioner, and I'm going to say doctor, acupuncturist, or whatever, naturopath. You can't allow them to take over you. You don't disempower yourself. Seek their help, but don't disempower yourself. No matter who you are, whether it be alternative, complementary, or medical. I don't care whether they're a specialist and you've had to wait 6 months for an appointment, which sometimes does happen. Don't buy into the idea that he's a busy man and you're going to disempower yourself and listen to it and believe everything, because there's only one God, and he doesn't live just in a human body. I think he channels himself through many human beings. But if one person thinks they're God and another, and you're lesser than them, I look at that very quickly. I mean, because I had a lot of racism when I was a kid, I learned very early that that we're all equal, and that
Yes.
the color of your skin, the shape of your eyes doesn't make any difference. We're all equal. We're a soul first, and then we have a physical body, whether it be male or female. We're still a soul first, and that's first and foremost in respecting and staying in a form of empowerment, not disempowering yourself for somebody else outside yourself. It's a very important step. It's a big part of Chinese medicine, and martial arts taught me that. And in all honesty, when I was a kid, I learned to be much more centered and understand life force energy, which is the foundation of acupuncture. Chi or life force energy. And a religious person would probably say that's God, and I honestly can say, well, it is God. It just depends on what language you're using and in explanation of it all. But to a great degree, it's all the same to me. It's the
Yeah.
greater good of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
And I also copped bullying growing up as well. And I experienced a lot of that because of my European heritage. I copped all sorts of bullying in Northern Beaches area of Sydney, where I grew up. And, I think it's made me more resilient now. I think it's made me appreciate life even more. And if you consider that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, it's interesting the challenges that our human body can go through sometimes, and what the learnings might be as we navigate these challenges, because one thing's for sure is that life is going to throw curveballs at you, right? There's going to be things that are going to come left, right, and center sometimes. And, and having that resilience, having that knowledge, having that self-awareness, I think is really important. And having faith, back to what you were saying, having hope, I think is so important. And in fact, and faith is
a
actually...
good friend of mine said to me, he said, and he's really still sticks with it. He said, when your number's up, your number's up. And I went, no, no, that's not true. That's not true. Your number's up when you choose it to be up. But I don't know anybody that consciously goes out of their way to do that. They might be in an emotional state, but they're not consciously doing it from a true self state. See, a lot of the work I do is to help a person really understand the difference between their ego and their true self, because ego is such a a nasty thing. It can get you into a lot of egotistical actions that really don't belong in the true sense of the soul. The soul is effectively pure love, and the closer we can return to pure love is the truth of soul purpose. They say that the true feelings is the good, kind, loving, caring, sharing part of you. The rest is just learned feelings, which are called emotions. And so some people live by their emotions thinking that's real. No, it's not. It's just how your tape recorder was recorded and how your computer was programmed when you were younger. And so our first 7 years is such an important phase of our personal development, and it can shape the human being, for good, for bad, and for indifferent, So,
Yes.
I mean, if you have love in your family structure for a child and they don't know anything else, then when they get into the real wide world, that they could experience a real rude awakening based on the way the world functions, outside the safety net of their loving family. So there's still, you can't just have all love, you have to have understanding as well. And that's why the books that I've written belong to both sides, because you have to have understanding and you have to have an open heart. And so, awareness of the heart and awareness of the mind are the titles of my book, my books.
Love that. And Robin Woodford says absolutely true on Instagram. Good to see you there. So for those who want to connect with you or get a copy of any of your books, where can they go?
Just go to my website and we'll make the connections from there. Everything's there, all the details, email address, and my phone number. I'm quite happy to answer the phone if somebody rings it. If people are really needing to talk to me directly, if I've got time, I'll answer it. If I don't have time, we'll go to a voicemail and I'll get back to them. It's I'm not I'm very approachable, because that's who I choose to be. I choose to be an approachable person. A patient once said to me, "What do I call you, doctor or Mister?" I said, "My name's Robin. Just call me Robin. That's my name." And so,
I love that. Yeah, thank you. And for those who are on the audio on Spotify or any of the podcast outlets, connect with Robin at acupuncturewisdomonline.com. Acupuncturewisdomonline.com. Yeah, that's the website there. And shout out to Claire Flynn, actually, who introduced me to you. She said you need to chat with Robin. So I just want to say thank you to Claire for this connection. If it wasn't for Claire, this wouldn't have come about. So thank you so much. And thank you for your support too recently of our Stop the Toxic Fire Ant program event. You donated a few vouchers there, which is wonderful. So thank you so much for your support. Also, we raised some funds there for Save the Bees Australia, which is wonderful. We had about 200 people there. We had Channel 9 stories and other media covered the story. So, never underestimate the power of one as well, the power that you can impact change, not just on your own life, but in your own healing journey, how you can impact the lives of others and the ripple effect that can happen when you make a stand for something. Good to see Sudan here on LinkedIn. Sudan Rajagopal, thank you for the love. Thank you for the faith, sending you faith back, sending you the namaste. As I do a lot of yoga, and so we all go namaste. The light in me sees the light in you, right? So namaste to you, Sudan. And for those who want to connect with me, just hop along to linktr.ee/Aldwyn. You'll see all my links there, linktr.ee/Aldwyn, spelled ALDWYN. Tomorrow I have a great event called Propel Your Profile in 2025. Come along at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. It's a free workshop online. You'll see the details in there. Also, the YouTube channel. We have over 1,400 videos now on the YouTube channel, Aldwyn Altuney Media Queen TV. So if you haven't subscribed yet, or check out some of the amazing, inspiring interviews we have in there, and some of the shorts and reels and comedy and all sorts of interesting stuff in there, go and have a look over there and get some more inspiration from the YouTube channel. And other media resources free. We've got the Global Good News Challenge every month, which is free marketing for you as well. And a great way to lift your energy. And in lifting your energy, you're going to be lifting your healing capacity too, I believe, if you look at Dr. Hawkins' scale of consciousness, right? The more that you have joy and gratitude in your life, the more you have peace. We talked about meditation earlier. Meditation is something that I do a lot of as well. And yoga always helps me come into meditation and enlightenment. All of that is going to help with your healing journey. And so my wish for you here, for all those who've joined us live and for those watching the replay, sending you much love and healing wherever you're at with your journey. Please do your own research, question everything. And thank you so much for joining us today. Any final words, Robin?
No, go with love. It's all I would say. Yeah. And live in the moment. Go with love and live in the moment, and the rest will fall into place. Look after your body and let your body look after you. Yeah, it really is a reciprocal action.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite quotes is from Gandhi: "Be the change you wish to see in the world. Be the change you wish to see in the world."
I like that. I like that. Yeah, I like that one.
And remembering that hurt people and healed people heal people. And often hurt people can hurt themselves as well. So just notice, is there anything happening in your life where you've been putting yourself down, you've been knocking yourself in any way, or are you lifting yourself up? Do you have people around you who are lifting you up, or are they pulling you down? Is it time to do a check-in? Check in with the people in your life, with your inner circle. Are there people in your life who are supporting you, or are they putting you down? And sometimes these people are family members. And so I always say, send them love, right? Send them love, right? Those who are hurting, send them lots of love, okay? And here's to much healing and love for you all. Philip, good to see you. Thank you, he says. Thank you, Philip Kozis on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining us. Let us know, what have you thought of this show? What sort of journey have you been on? If you've helped to heal yourself, or you know of anyone who has, what have they done? Please share the love. Let's share the knowledge, and let's all get empowered together. Many blessings to you, Robin. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and what an inspiration you are. I can't wait to see the book. So make sure you connect with Robin after this as well, and you can go and see him in Currumbin and get a session done with him as well. So go and check him out there as well. Thank you so much.
Actually, I will say one thing, and that acupuncture originally was all about preventative medicine. It's just the Western mindset that waits till something is a problem and then they do something about it. So you went to your acupuncturist, 3,000 years ago to stay well, and his job was to keep you well. That was his job, was to keep you well. And so everything is reversed now in modern society. And I practice from that point of view when people want to commit to that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, wonderful. I love that. So again, prevention is always better than cure. However, it's amazing it's amazing what you can do, as Robin has shown us here today, 4 years after, terminal cancer diagnosis. He now has the best possible outcome. And hey, we can't ask for much more than that right now, can we? So that is awesome. And it's maintaining that too, right, Robin? It's maintaining that now.
Yeah. No, my life's changed dramatically. I don't live like the normal person. I can honestly say that. I don't live like that. There's a lot of things that I do, but I've taken a piece of the puzzle from everywhere. But I never was normal basically before, to tell you the truth. I was born different and I live differently, and I even as an acupuncturist, different. We're yin yang people, as I said.
Yes, and we are all 1 in a billion just by being born. We've beaten a billion swimmers to get to the finish line. So we're all unique. We're all, and there's a lot of rebels and
Exactly.
renegades, I must say, rebels and renegades in my vicinity. So here's a shout out to all those who think differently and who act differently and who question things. Those are the people I like to hang out with, right? Those that do not consent just for the sake of consenting, right? Do your own research, and that way you'll have the best possible outcome for yourself and the best possible life. Thank you once again, Robin. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know
Thank
what you
you.
thought. So share the love. If you know this can help someone as well, please share the love wherever you're tuning in right now. And who knows who you could impact and who you could inspire to have the best possible life from this show. Thank you so much, Robin. Thanks once again. Bye
Super.
for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.